We were just having a conversation how one of the moms was in the NICU for 10 days, and one of the complaints is her baby wasn't crying. And she's like, no, like you're pricking her heels, you're doing all these kind of stuff, like she should be crying. And they go, well, she's just really chilled out or really relaxed babies. Okay, let's get the record straight. First of all, it's one of the warnings in your first month or even the first 3 months of life. You don't need a baby monitor because you should be able to hear your baby cry from the next room, right? A cry should have enough of a voice, okay? There's some aspects to crying. So the first cry, your baby comes out of the womb in hopefully a natural delivery because it's the first rotation and the squeeze the baby needs. Remember, if you take the cocoon off a caterpillar and so forth, the butterfly will never fly, right? There's a process to that coming out of the system, right? Part of it is what you're doing is you're squeezing down on the lungs, almost like you're squeezing on a sponge, right? And there's foam within inside the lungs, and then also you're hit with gravity. So the foam, that palate strike happens as it comes out of the vaginal canal, the head, and has that, and it opens up the foam. And that's what you get that first wah, because there's force from within and a force, and it's what gets your vocal cords to vibrate. It's what gets your esophagus to work. All of this stuff work because you don't intake oxygen or food or anything. There's no intake, and there's no exhale or elimination. That's the word I was looking for. In the womb. If so, they could be life-threatening and or deadly, right? This is the first time, that first breath. And so the ribs open up and the intercostal muscles, in a sense, snap into place. And this really is so important because it's that organization of opposing gravity, right? And that feeling, because gravity now is a non-optional force. And it's going to go with you to the day you die. Gravity will be your constant. I can choose to fix my hair, do all these things and use forces of movement, but gravity is the only non-optional force. So that cry should be a wah. And then the child will learn to do various cries. You're going to want to let them play with their voice at first because, again, it's opening up all of that. It's sort of like you don't swaddle the baby, you don't swaddle the vocal cords. You want that, yeah, and like they'll start to whine for their food, and then they'll start to escalate it, and then it'll keep going. I had another child that was adopted from Russia. She said the orphanage was the quietest place because they've learned, why cry? Nobody's coming. And so really she, at 7 months and so forth, had to teach her son to have a voice again, in a sense, because they would just go down on rows and just, she goes, I've never seen a baby diapered so fast in my life. Next, there was no, he didn't crawl, he wasn't out of the crib. So there's variations of extreme that can happen that are going to affect your child. A meth baby, a baby addicted to drugs is going to sound more like a machine gun. They won't be getting that full cycle. You'll almost hear the rotation in the cry, that as they say, cycle through. There are some genetics like that have more of a cat sound, that again, these are signs of that something could be going wrong, but you can organize breath. But I firmly believe and practice that if a baby has issues opposing breath in their first cry, or during the first 3 months where that gets traumatized, I can guarantee you if they can't organize gravity correctly in breathing, they're going to have a hard time opposing gravity, like in walking, later on without some form of intervention. So any child, I don't care if you're at risk for CP or not, but honestly, that should be diagnosed from the get-go, but it's not. You should have working on the respiratory immediately. Any child that has intubation, cannulation, problems with the first breath, they're in an environment where they can't cry, phototherapy, all these kind of things, I can guarantee you're going to have a higher chance of speech delays possibly, or articulation issues, the slur, due to that. It's not a guarantee, I get it, but if you start looking at the birth deviations and what's going on in your baby's life, especially if there's NICU time, you better be working on it. Just act like you think there's a problem, do it, versus I'm waiting to see if there's really going to be a problem and then I'll get involved. No. The breath, that first cry, you should hear your baby. You should not hear a little or again, waking your child up to feed them, they're sleeping through it. These are all signs of their communication is telling you that there's an issue, and you should respond to it and try and get them help, and get the answers. Please don't let anybody tell you that all babies are like this, or this is just a matter of fact, or they're just a chill baby. If they did not evaluate your child, then their answer doesn't count. How's that?